The cry from the dumpster. It was a cold night. Rain fell softly on the empty streets. Most people were inside, warm and dry. But one man was still out. His name was Jordan. He worked late at the repair shop and was walking home when he heard something strange. A soft, weak cry. Jordan stopped. He looked around. The sound came again, like a baby, but not quite human. The noise was coming from behind an old restaurant near a big metal dumpster. He stepped carefully into the alley. The light above the door flickered. Trash bags were stacked high and the smell was strong. But the cry came again, louder this time. It was coming from inside the dumpster. Jordan's heart pounded. He climbed up, opened the heavy lid, and looked inside. At first, he saw only garbage. Then, movement. Something small was buried under torn plastic bags. He reached in and pulled out a bundle of cloth. It wasn't cloth. It was a baby, a small alien baby. Its skin was a pale silver blue, covered in light scales. Tiny horns rested on its head. It had large eyes, glowing faintly, filled with fear and tears. The baby was shaking, freezing, and barely alive. Jordan's breath caught. Oh my God, who did this? He quickly took off his jacket and wrapped the child gently. The baby didn't cry now. It just stared at him, its eyes wide and sad. It made a tiny sound, like it was trying to speak, but it was too weak. Jordan looked around. No one was there. No camera, no note. Just the rain, the trash, and this abandoned child. He held the baby close and walked home fast. Back at his small house, Jordan turned on the heat. He found a soft towel and dried the baby gently. He made warm milk, hoping it might help. The baby looked unsure, but when he brought the bottle near its lips, it drank slowly, like it hadn't eaten in days. Jordan sat beside the fire, holding the baby in his lap. "What happened to you?" he whispered. "Where is your mother?" The baby didn't answer, of course, but it looked up at him, and its tiny hand reached out, touching his face. Jordan closed his eyes. That one touch felt like a scream for help. He didn't know what species the baby was. It didn't matter. He wasn't going to leave it to die. Later that night, while the baby slept on a pillow, Jordan sat near the window thinking, why would anyone throw a baby into the trash? Especially one like this, quiet, gentle, helpless. Then, something moved outside, a shadow. He stood quickly and looked out the window. He saw a figure at the edge of the trees, tall, thin, and not quite human. The figure stood still for a moment. Then, it turned and vanished into the dark. Jordan grabbed a flashlight and went outside. The rain had stopped. The ground was wet and soft. He followed the footprints left behind. They were light and strange, like someone with clawed feet. He followed them to the back of his house, then to the alley where he first found the baby. But then, they disappeared. Whoever it was, they had been watching him, watching the baby. He returned home, heart heavy with questions. The baby was still asleep, curled under a warm blanket. Jordan sat beside it and whispered, "Don't worry, I'm not letting anyone take you." The baby didn't wake, but its tiny tail curled softly around Jordan's finger. That night, Jordan didn't sleep. Not really. Every creak, every wind gust made him look around. The image of that thin figure stayed in his mind. He had a feeling it wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a hunter. It wasn't a thief. It was someone who cared for the baby. Maybe the baby's mother. But if she cared, why did she leave the baby in the trash? Or was she forced to, too weak to help, too poor, too afraid? So many questions. No answers. Only the sound of the rain, the crackling fire, and the soft breath of a sleeping alien child. Jordan looked down at the baby and whispered one promise. "You're safe now." The shadow in the alley. The next night, the rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet. Jordan stood near his window, staring at the trees. The baby was asleep in a box lined with towels, breathing slow and steady. He should have felt peace, but he didn't. Something was wrong, something was watching. Earlier he had found marks near the window, small scratches in the wood, and a strange silver thread caught on a nail. It shimmered like it wasn't from this world. Jordan checked the door twice. Locked. He walked to the baby's box. The child, alien, soft, fragile, still looked peaceful. But when Jordan bent down to touch its forehead, its little hand grabbed his finger tightly, almost like it was afraid. Jordan whispered, "It's okay. I'm here." Suddenly, he heard something outside, a soft thud. He turned off the lights. Silence. He opened the door slowly and stepped outside. The cool air hit his skin. He held a flashlight, but the beam showed nothing. Then he noticed the alley, across from his house, the same alley where he had found the baby. Something moved in the shadows. He walked closer. There, under the dim street lamp, stood a figure, tall, thin, barely standing. The figure swayed, like it might fall at any second. Jordan raised the light. What he saw made him freeze. It was her, the alien mother. She was no monster. She looked weak, broken. Her silver blue skin was covered in dirt. Her eyes were sunken and tired. Her bones showed through her skin. She wore a torn piece of cloth, barely covering her body. Her hair hung in wet strands. She stared at Jordan with wide, glowing eyes. He didn't speak. Neither did she. Then, suddenly, she ran. Her legs wobbled, her breathing shallow, but she still tried to escape. Jordan called out, "Wait, I'm not here to hurt you." But she didn't stop. She turned a corner and vanished. Jordan chased her. He followed her through the back alleys, stepping over broken crates and puddles. At the end of one alley, he saw her fall. She didn't move. When he reached her, she was curled up beside a trash bin, shivering, her arms around her chest. She looked up at him with fear and shame in her eyes. Jordan knelt beside her. "It's okay," he said softly. "You don't have to run." She shook her head weakly. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Her hands trembled. Then she tried to speak. Her voice was cracked and dry. She whispered one word in a language Jordan didn't know, then tapped her chest. There, he saw it. A burn mark. A harsh, ugly symbol. It looked like a brand, as if someone had pressed hot metal into her skin. Jordan took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. She flinched at first, but didn't push him away. "You left the baby, didn't you?" he asked gently. She lowered her head. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Thick, silvery tears that shimmered in the moonlight. She had no voice left, but her eyes told everything. She was the mother. Jordan helped her stand. She was too weak to walk on her own, so he supported her as they moved back to his house. Step by slow step, her weight leaned heavier on him. At his door, she hesitated. She pointed to herself, then pointed back, toward the alley. Jordan understood. "You're afraid? You think you're not welcome?" She looked at him, unsure. He nodded once. "You are." Inside, the alien baby stirred. When the mother saw her child, she fell to her knees. Her breath hitched. She crawled forward and reached for the baby. Her fingers shook, hovering over its soft skin. The baby opened its eyes. A tiny coo. Recognition. The baby reached out, and the mother let out a sound Jordan would never forget. Not a word. Not a cry. It was a sound of pain and relief at the same time. She cradled her child and rocked back and forth, whispering things in her broken voice. Jordan stood in the corner, silent. He didn't understand the words, but he understood everything. This was a mother who had lost everything. Her home, her strength, her dignity, and had made the hardest choice to save her child. She had come back, starving, weak, hunted, but she came back. And now, she wasn't alone. Her hunger was killing her. The alien mother sat on the floor, holding her baby close. Her arms were thin. Her skin was pale and dry. She hadn't spoken much since the night Jordan brought her in, but her eyes said everything. Fear, shame, hunger. Her body trembled even while sitting. Jordan brought her a blanket, but she didn't reach for it. She didn't have the strength. He placed a small bowl of hot soup on the table and pushed it toward her. The smell filled the room, a mix of broth, herbs, and warmth. She stared at the bowl. Then slowly, like a wild creature afraid of a trap, she reached out and took it. She brought the bowl close to her face. She didn't sip. She drank. Fast. Messy. Like someone who hadn't eaten in weeks. Some of the soup spilled on her chin and chest. Her hands shook, but she didn't stop until the bowl was empty. Then she coughed and held her stomach, breathing heavily. Jordan quickly gave her a second bowl. This time she drank slower. The baby in her arms cooed softly. The alien mother looked down at her child and whispered in a cracked voice. A lullaby. It didn't sound like a song. It sounded like sorrow being sung into the air. Jordan sat across from her, quiet. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her language. He didn't even know what species she was. But she was a mother. A real one. And mothers didn't abandon their children unless they had no choice. He saw the deep scar burned into her skin, the brand of rejection. He had seen a symbol like that once on a document about alien laws. It was given to those who broke sacred traditions. To give birth during a famine was a crime on some planets, especially if the child was born without permission. That child would be called cursed, and the mother, erased from her people. Jordan's chest grew tight. This woman hadn't just been abandoned, she had been punished for choosing love. Later that night, she tried to stand. Jordan reached to help, but she shook her head. She wanted to move on her own. Her legs wobbled as she walked slowly around the room, her baby still in her arms. She touched the walls, the windows, the fireplace. She was memorizing everything, like she was trying to decide if it was safe to stay. Then she pointed to herself. She said something, a name maybe. It sounded like Thera. Jordan repeated, Thera? She nodded. Then she pointed to the baby. Rael, she whispered. Jordan smiled gently. Thera, Rael, good names. That night, Jordan gave her a bed. She refused at first. She laid down on the floor, arms wrapped around her child like a shield. Jordan placed a pillow beside her anyway and left a blanket. Thera didn't say thank you, but her tired eyes looked at him, not with fear this time, but with a hint of trust. But just before dawn, Jordan heard a strange sound from the living room. He rushed out of bed. Thera was standing at the table, weak, shaking, but standing. She had eaten all the leftovers in the kitchen, cold bread, raw beans, even dry rice. She looked scared when she saw him, like she thought he would be angry. But Jordan didn't yell. He didn't scold. He walked to the pantry and took out a sealed container of soft protein cakes. He handed it to her. She hesitated, then took it with both hands and broke off a piece. She gave it to her baby first. Rael ate happily, mouth open, eyes bright. Then Thera ate too. Slow now, calmer. Jordan said gently, You don't need to steal here. You can ask. Thera looked at him with a small nod. Then she touched her chest again over the brand, and for the first time, her tears didn't fall. The sun rose quietly. Jordan made tea and sat by the window watching as Thera and Rael slept together on the mat, curled up like they were still hiding from the world. He wondered how long they had been running. How many nights she had starved to feed her child. How many people had seen her and turned away. Now, they were in his house, and he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let them go. The brand of the rejected, the fire had burned low by morning. Thera sat near it, silent, her arms wrapped gently around Rael. The baby slept against her chest, safe, and full for the first time in days. Jordan sat nearby drinking tea. He didn't speak. He just watched her. The way her eyes never stopped scanning the room. How her body flinched at every sudden sound. How she always kept herself between her child and the door. Even now, in a warm house, she was afraid someone would come take her baby away. Jordan reached over and placed a soft blanket over her shoulders. Thera didn't move, but her eyes turned toward him. This time, she didn't look like prey. She looked like a survivor. A few minutes later, Jordan opened an old storage box from his room and pulled out a small device. It was a translator, basic, but it worked with over 100 alien languages. He hadn't used it in years. He held it up. "Can I help you speak?" Thera stared at the machine, unsure. Jordan slowly pressed it to her collarbone. It buzzed softly. Then he handed her a small earpiece. She placed it in her ear and nodded. Jordan turned it on. "Hello," he said. Thera jumped a little. She touched the translator, then looked at him. Her voice came out rough but clear. "I understand you." Jordan smiled. "Good." She looked down. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked, "Why did you leave your baby?" Her hands curled around Rail. "I didn't want to," she said. Her voice cracked. "But I had no more food. My body was dying. I thought someone might hear him cry and help." She looked at the fire, eyes glassy. "I watched from the shadows. I saw you find him. You didn't throw him away. You didn't run. You held him." Tears ran down her cheeks. "You saved him." Jordan swallowed hard. He gently asked, "What is that mark on your chest? The burn?" Thera hesitated. Then with trembling fingers she pulled her robe aside just enough to reveal the symbol burned into her skin. It was ugly, twisted, and deep. Jordan stared at it. "I've seen something like this before. It's a punishment?" She nodded. "Yes, it means I broke the law. I gave birth during the scarving." Jordan frowned. Scarving. Scarcity and carving. When food is gone and only those chosen may live. No one is allowed to breed during that time. "But I love someone." Her voice trembled. "We hid. But when I became heavy with child, he was taken. Executed. They burned me. Called me cursed. Said my baby would bring famine again." She looked down at Rail, who was now sucking on her finger. But he didn't. He brought love. Jordan sat quietly for a long time. He had heard stories of cruel customs on faraway worlds. But this was inhuman. He shook his head. "You were branded for being a mother. For choosing life. That's not a curse. That's courage." Thera looked at him like she didn't understand his words. "No one has ever said that to me," she whispered. Jordan stood up and went to a drawer. He brought back a mirror, small, old, cracked in the corner. He held it out to her. She hesitated. Then she took it and looked at her reflection. Her face was thin, her eyes sunken, the brand on her chest like a wound that never healed. She looked like someone the world had already thrown away. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said softly, "This mark is my shame." Jordan knelt beside her. "No," he said. "That mark tells your story, and you're still here. You're alive. And your child is alive because of you." She looked at him, confused, but something shifted in her expression. Not full hope, but a small crack in the wall around her heart. That evening, Jordan brought out a clean shirt. Soft, dark, oversized. He handed it to her. "No one will see the mark unless you want them to," he said. She took it with shaking hands. Later, when she wore it and stood holding Rail by the firelight, something looked different. She didn't seem like a lost creature anymore. She looked like a mother standing tall for the first time. But outside, hidden in the woods beyond the house, something else watched. A pair of glowing eyes. A small drone hovered in the air, scanning the house. A red light blinked once, then it flew back into the stars. The symbol on Thera's chest was not just a punishment. It was a target, and someone had just found it again. The warning from the stars. The wind howled that night. Jordan couldn't sleep. Something inside him felt heavy, like a storm was coming. Thera and Rael were resting in the small guest room, finally warm and fed. He walked to the porch with a mug of coffee in his hands, the steam rising into the cold air. The stars above were bright, too bright. And then, something blinked. A red light. It flashed once in the sky, then disappeared. Jordan frowned. He knew that wasn't a star. It was too low, too fast. He didn't know why, but it made his skin crawl. By morning, things got worse. Jordan stepped outside and froze. On the ground near his house, in the middle of his field, something had been burned into the grass, a strange symbol. It was perfect, like it had been carved by fire. The shape was circular, twisted, and cruel. It looked exactly like the mark on Thera's chest. He stared at it for a long time. Then, a metallic, clicking sound came from above. He looked up. A drone hovered above his house. Small, silent, almost invisible. The moment it saw him, it zipped upward and vanished into the clouds. Jordan ran inside. Thera was feeding Rael with a spoon when he burst in. She looked up and instantly saw the fear on his face. He pulled her to the window and pointed. She saw the burned symbol in the field, and her face changed, not with fear, with terror. She dropped the spoon. "No," she whispered. "They found me." Jordan's heart pounded. "Who?" She stepped back, holding Rael close to her chest. "They are called the Qatar enforcers. They are not people, they are shadows. They come for those like me, the marked. They do not give warnings." "But they did give one," Jordan said. "They left a symbol, they sent a drone. Maybe they're watching, not acting yet." Thera shook her head. "No. The mark in your field is not a warning." She turned to face him fully. "It is a countdown. They had 3 days." She told him everything. The Qatar enforcers were ancient, part of her world's old laws. Once someone was marked, they were considered a danger to the cycle of survival. If that person was found caring for the child again, both were erased. Silently, quickly, no trial, no talk, just erasure. "They burn the memories of us," Thera said. "They make it like we never lived. Our names are removed. Our homes destroyed, our stories lost." Jordan clenched his fists. "Not this time." But Thera looked down. "You don't understand. No one stands against them. No one lives to tell the story." Jordan's jaw tightened. Then maybe it's time someone did. He got to work. Jordan had once been a soldier. Before he fixed machines, he had protected people. He never thought those skills would be needed again, especially not for a mother and child from another world. He set up cameras. He reinforced the doors. He checked his old gear, body armor, shields, emergency weapons. He called an old friend in the underground network, someone who helped rescue aliens from bad systems. "They're watching you?" the man asked. "Qatar don't give second chances," Jordan replied. "They're going to wish they had." That night, as the wind picked up again, Thera sat near the fire, rocking her baby slowly. "Why are you risking this?" she asked. Jordan softly. He didn't answer right away. He looked at Rael, who now smiled at him without fear. He looked at Thera, who now spoke with a voice instead of silence. He said quietly, "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago. Because you didn't deserve to be thrown away. And because I'm not going to let monsters erase a mother and her child just to follow a stupid old law." Thera looked down, tears in her eyes again. Not from fear this time. From something closer to hope. But far, far above them. Beyond clouds, beyond air. A large ship hovered quietly. Inside, Cold machines prepared silently. A voice in a dark chamber said, "Target confirmed. Mark activated. Memory wipe protocol begins at sunrise. Day 3. The last stand at dawn was coming. The sky was dark blue, with a line of orange rising, behind the hills. But the peaceful colors didn't calm Jordan. He stood on the porch, fully dressed, armored, and ready. He had one weapon by his side and a shield on his back. Not enough to win a war, but enough to show he would not go down without fighting. Inside the house, Thera sat on the floor, holding Rael close to her chest. She had dressed her child in soft fabric and tied a small crystal around his neck, the only thing she had brought from her world. She kissed Rael's head again and again. Jordan stepped inside and spoke gently. "They'll come soon." Thera looked up. "I'm ready." Her eyes were no longer filled with fear. They were full of fire. Outside, silence ruled. No birds, no wind. Then the sky bent. A ripple of energy appeared above the forest, and from that ripple, the Qatar ship emerged, dark, sharp, silent. It floated down, casting a shadow over Jordan's small house. Then, a soft thud. Metal pods touched the ground like spiders. They opened. Figures stepped out. 6 of them, each one tall, armored in black plates, their faces hidden by smooth silver masks. They moved like machines but thought like hunters. One of them held a device glowing red. He pointed it at the house. "Target acquired," he said in a cold voice. "Erasure begins now." Jordan stepped out from the house. He stood tall between the Qatar and the front door. "I won't let you take them," he said loudly. The lead enforcer tilted his head. "You are human. This matter does not concern your kind." Jordan laughed dryly. "You marked her as cursed. You left a baby to die in the trash. Now you think this is not my concern?" The enforcer took a step forward. "You are interfering with an authorized cleansing. Stand down or be erased as well." Jordan didn't move. "Erase me then, but I won't move." Behind him, the door creaked open. Thera stepped out, holding Rael. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady. The Qatar paused. One of them scanned her chest. The brand glowed under her shirt. Another enforcer stepped forward, raising a weapon. But then, a voice rang out. "Put it down." A shout came from the trees. Several humans emerged. Jordan's neighbors, farmers, mechanics, traders, people with no fancy weapons, just tools and courage. They stood beside Jordan, uninvited but unshaken. "We heard what you tried to do here," said a woman holding a metal rod. "You think we'd just watch?" "You're not on your world anymore," another man said. "Here, we protect mothers and babies." The Qatar hesitated. They had expected fear, obedience, but they found resistance. Thera looked around at the humans, stunned. She whispered, "Why? Why are they helping?" Jordan looked back and smiled. "Because I told them your story." The lead enforcer stepped forward again. "You are breaking the ancient code." Jordan took a step too. "Then your code is broken." The enforcer raised his weapon. So did Jordan. For a second, no one breathed. Then, the baby cried. Rael's cry was not loud, but it pierced the silence. Thera held him tighter. The enforcer paused. He looked at the child, then at the human standing in front of him, then at the dozens now rising from the sides of the hill. More people with cameras, drones, and lights. One of them shouted, "The whole galaxy is watching now. You touch that baby, and everyone will know what the Qatar really are." The enforcer froze. "Withdraw," came a voice from the ship above. Cold, calculating. The lead enforcer stepped back. "But the law is already broken," the voice replied. "We leave now." The enforcers turned. One by one, they walked back to their pods. The red lights shut off. The ship lifted into the sky, then vanished, gone. The crowd slowly left, leaving Jordan, Thera, and Rael alone again. Thera stood there, not moving. "Is it over?" she whispered. Jordan nodded. "For now, yes." Thera looked up at the rising sun and her voice shook. No one's ever stood up for me. Not even on my own world. Jordan smiled gently. Welcome to ours. She held Rael tightly. I don't have a home anymore, she said softly. You do now, he replied. A name for the unwanted 1 week had passed since the Qatar left. No more drones. No more red lights in the sky. No more fear knocking at the door. Just quiet. Safe. Simple quiet. Thera stood in the garden behind Jordan's house. Rael was wrapped to her chest with a cloth sling, his eyes wide and curious as he watched a butterfly land on his mother's hand. The sun was warm. The grass tickled her bare feet. For the first time in her life, she smiled without hiding it. Jordan came outside, wiping his hands with a towel. He had been fixing the fence, though it wasn't broken. I keep working, he chuckled, because I still don't believe they're really gone. Thera turned toward him. They're gone, she said. But something stayed. Jordan raised an eyebrow. What? She looked down at Rael, then at her hands, then back at him. Hope. That night, Jordan made a small fire. He brought out soft blankets and set them around the living room. Thera watched with quiet joy as Rael crawled across the carpet, trying to chase a beam of light from a flashlight. You should name him something, Jordan said suddenly. Something human. Thera smiled, shaking her head. He already has a name. Rael. Rael is beautiful, Jordan nodded. But what about your name? She looked confused. He continued, the Qatar took your name, didn't they? They tried to erase you, but you survived. You get to choose again. Pick a name. Any name. She was silent for a moment, then softly said, I don't know human names. Jordan thought for a second, then got up, grabbed a small book, and flipped through it. He read out names gently, one at a time. Each name floated through the room like wind. When he said Lena, her eyes lit up. Lena, she repeated slowly. What does it mean? Gentle. Light. Someone who brings peace. She placed a hand on her heart. Lena, she said again, as if tasting it. Then she nodded. I want to be Lena. From that night forward, Thera was gone. The woman with the brand, the one who had crawled through filth and shadows to save her son. She would live on as Lena, the name she chose for her second life. Jordan filed papers the next day. He registered Rael with a new identity, not as a cursed alien child, but as a child under human protection. He filled in the name of the guardian, Lena Rael, mother. Jordan Reese, human sponsor. As the days turned to weeks, the house changed. It wasn't quiet anymore. Rael giggled now. He screamed sometimes too, loud and playful. Lena learned to laugh again, to sleep through the night, to trust a home that didn't shake beneath her feet. Jordan taught her to cook earth food. She taught him how to make tea from the crystal she wore around her neck. She said it came from a tree on her home planet. A tree they cut down, she whispered one night. But I carried the last root in my necklace, and now it grows in your soil. They planted it in the backyard, and it grew, slowly, carefully, like all things that survive pain. One evening, months later, Jordan came home to something new. Lena stood at the door, wearing a clean dress, her hair brushed neatly behind her ears. Rael stood beside her, holding her hand, now able to walk in the little clumsy steps. On the table inside was a dish Jordan had never seen before, warm, glowing slightly, sweet in smell. What's this? He asked. Lena looked at him, nervous, but excited. It's called Zarela. It's a celebration food on my world, made only when someone is welcomed into the family. He stared at her, surprised. She took a breath. You gave me back my name, my son, my life. Now I want to give you something. Jordan smiled, eyes soft. What? She stepped closer. Your name, as part of ours. Rael let go of her hand and walked over to Jordan, arms wide. Jordan picked him up, holding the boy close. Family? He asked softly. Lena nodded. Family. And for the first time in his life, Jordan Reese, A simple mechanic who once walked home past dumpsters felt what it meant to be needed, not for strength, not for power, but for kindness. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, the Qatar would someday learn the truth, that the unwanted they tried to erase was now loved, protected, named, and very much alive.